Okay,
Good.
we're good. So we live. So sorry about the technical difficulties. Attempting to do some things behind the scenes a little bit different. And so for those that are tuning in, we appreciate your patience and everything else. So let's find out who's watching. As always, any new viewers or returning viewers, let us know where you're watching from in the chat, and we'll definitely acknowledge your presence. It's always great to have you guys spend time with us this afternoon. We understand time is precious these days. So I see Frank Castle. I see Spencer, Derek. We got George. We got Armed Resistance. AR is in. We got Archer. Who else here? SG Fan. So more people are tuning in. So with that being the case, we're going to be covering silver, and Paul has laid out some good information that I think you guys will enjoy. And then, as always, it's always an open mic. So we got the number 567-336-0844. Let's give us a call, make sure that boy works. And then, as always, whatever else is on your mind, whatever topics you guys want to touch on, feel free to address it via phone call or chat, and highlight at Silver Doctor so it'll stick out, and then we'll try to answer it. And so, that being the case, we got Vegas, we got Portland, we got Florida, we got Nevada. So we got a nice little crowd here. So Paul, kick us off. Let's get right into the primary subject of this afternoon. Silver,
Yeah.
your favorite.
Yeah. Silver is on a tear, Mike. So I mean, I know you had a question asked last week about, you're probably mad that silver's gone up. It's gone up even more since last week. So I'm gonna try and pull it up here. The date was May 28th, and I'm trying to look for the exact price. Okay, on May 28th, the price of silver closed at $14.23.
Mm-hmm.
And, sitting at $19.50 right now, we're up over 35% in just a few months, Mike. A 35% move in just a few months.
Yeah.
And, the interesting thing about this is, all the technical analysts out there, it keeps throwing everybody off because, the move has just been incredible since then. The technicals are just way overblown right now. Everybody's saying, get ready for a major pullback, get ready for a major pullback, major correction is coming. And yeah, the technicals are signaling that, right? But what I've been arguing for the past few weeks now is that I think first and foremost, the fear trade is on. Mm-hmm. And I think that just fundamental forces are coming into these markets and they're finally starting to exert themselves. Remember, there's two things that affect markets, right? Technicals and fundamentals, right? So mm-hmm. all the chartists and traders out there, what are the charts doing and what's the price action showing? But just what are the underlying conditions of the market itself? And there's just so many things going on with silver right now that I really think it's overwhelming mm-hmm. the charts. And, we went through that bulleted list, right? And to get to a little bit more specifically, we got the fear trade going on. We got people putting on a hedge against inflation. We got people making speculative bets. I mean, that's going on as well, too. We've got people trying to get out of the U.S. dollar. Mm-hmm. We've got people trying to preserve their wealth because they know what's coming. There's just so many reasons that people are moving into silver. Here's the beauty of it all, right? The beauty of it all is that, the American, right, the Western, the retail investor still is not in these markets, right? Premiums are still ultra low right now. Mm-hmm. So, yes, price of silver's moved. It's even moved from the last time we were talking last week. And but on the flip side of that, at least premiums are still down. Yeah. Those are just some initial thoughts there, because you're looking at the RSI, right? The Relative Strength Index. Mm-hmm. And when it gets above a certain level, people like to look at a level of 70 or 75, but when it gets above 80 or something like that, they're like, oh my goodness, here it comes. It's going to get blown down. And, sure, we're above there right now. I don't even know what's off the charts right now, above, I think, 85. So the technicals are just saying that silver is way overbought here, yet silver continues to defy all the chartists out there. Those are just some initial opening thoughts. Thoughts on that, Mike?
I do agree. And so to even play into that more, you mentioned two indicators, the technicals and the fundamentals. And so assuming, human emotion, does that play into one of those two itself? Because that could be a third if it doesn't fit into the first two. Because what I would imagine is people are starting to really begin to pay more attention to things happening from a global standpoint. And as I think I've mentioned before, it's hard to just keep things quiet when you have odds or relatively all-time highs and metals prices happening all around us. And so it's just a matter of time before that type of momentum picks up and it spreads inward. because I'm of the mindset that whatever is transpiring, which is causing and leading to this next, whatever it's going to be called, slowdown, recession, depression, whatever, it's coming from outside. And so we're going to get the, you know how when a tidal wave, picks up, it starts real small and then it just, in the very middle, and it gets real hectic in the middle. The U.S. is in the middle of everything because we're the cause of everything, central banking wise. The Federal Reserve is the cause, rather. But that being the case, the prices, once again, they're moving in increments, which is exciting, but yet we haven't seen nothing near what's coming. And so, yes, I do agree with you 100%, and it's just a matter of time. And the way things are occurring, it looks like before the end of this year, we could, definitely be into the, mid 20s. My guess, but who knows? I'll let you focus on that.
Yeah, I've been saying I think we're going to be blowing through these levels, and we've blown through these initial levels, right? I mean, there is so much resistance there at 1750. So much resistance at 18. I can't remember the exact number, but we're at multi-year highs right now. You have to go back to, it's either August or September of 2016 to find a higher silver price than where we are now. So silver is looking really strong here, and that's yes, you're talking about what you were talking about with the human emotion. Part of that is the fear trade, right? That's part of the fundamentals is the fear trade, because people are seeing what's going on. They're starting to realize, why do I not get any money in my savings, and why are my savings not going as far, and why am I falling further and further behind all the time, right? And what can I do about it? Well, the simplest, easiest thing to do about it is to stack gold and silver, because that's going to be your hedge against all of this stuff, right? The political uncertainty, the economic uncertainty, the market uncertainty. So, these are just these natural forces that are finally starting to come back.
Yeah.
As far as, when, I'm still thinking that it's time to the 2020 election. I think you had a great interview with Harley Schlanger yesterday.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you guys were talking about is, he's being set up to take the fall, right? And, I would disagree with that, because personally, in my opinion, I think that he's part of the fall.
Yeah.
That said, whether he's being set up or whether he's part of it, yes, right? This is what I've been saying for months now. And now, the funny thing is, well, not funny, I mean, it's pretty scary when you think about it, but like Bill Dudley, right? The ex-New York Fed president, right? So when you think about the Fed, where is the most influential sphere of power from the Fed? It's in New York, right? That's where they have that direct, 10 gigabit line to the servers where they can put in those trades and move the markets. So, he's saying that it's our duty to make sure that President Trump does not win the election in 2020. Yeah. So you just got all this turmoil all around, and people are starting to price this in. What does a Trump victory mean in 2020? What does a Trump loss mean in 2020? Either way, is Trump going to be able to be successful after he's not been successful for these first years? And then if he loses, well, what are we going to get? We're going to get some hardcore socialist type of money printer. So either way, this outlook is going to be bullish for gold and silver. All the things that have been on this, people call it like the Trump pump or whatever, it's starting to fade now. Right. Yeah. And all of these things are starting to lose what they've gained since early 2017. And an interesting thing about this, and part of this, human emotion thing that you hit on earlier, the dollar is surging. The dollar has surged again just this week on the dollar index, on the DXY. So all of these moves, and especially silver, is happening evening with this strong dollar. Now, sure, yes, the metals can move up with the dollar, but still, once the dollar starts falling, that can put a turbocharger under the price of silver again. Yeah. Yes, we have come very far, very fast, but I think that it is really just starting, and I think that it's going to be impressing people big time. Because here's the thing, right? People are like, well, no, you're just going to be saying, well, this time it's different. Well, yeah. Why? Because resets happen, right? Global monetary resets happen, right? Yeah. Financial crisis happens, right? So that's what we know is coming. So even though the technicals are so overbought right now, we're on the end of a paradigm shift, right? Harley Schlanger yesterday said it's going to either end up in coming to an agreement on the next monetary system, or we're all going to die in nuclear world war apocalyptic Armageddon. Yeah, right. So I mean, it is different this time. Yeah. Right. Because there's going to be a reset, or we're not going to wake up tomorrow. It's one of the two.
That's not funny, but when he said that nuclear, I'm like, oh, I didn't want, when that came out of nowhere. I didn't anticipate hearing the word nuclear because I try to stay away from that word. I don't like that word, and it's just something that I hope we never have to get to. But it's a real possibility, especially alternative media sense when you hear about Trump pulling out the nuclear arms agreement, and then we hear about Russia. We're building up an arsenal. Like, what do we build up an arsenal for? Like, we're on the same planet. Like, no one wins. Like, I mean, so how bad must things get before people to, really stop considering that an option? Which means that it probably won't happen because whatever it is, the powers that be, the people who run the system, literally are okay with ending humanity in that regard. So, yeah, I'm not excited about that whatsoever. That is not
Yeah,
good news.
because they have, because the other thing is they have the hubris to think that they would be able to somehow survive it and rise up from the ashes and who knows what else.
Yeah, perhaps that's why Elon Musk is so like. Because I'm not sure if you watched the Jack Ma Elon Musk little so-called AI debate where they were questioning each other back and forth talking about the future, and two takeaways from it was that basically we're in trouble no matter what. And then Elon Musk was saying how important it is to do two things: a, get to the moon, just in the possibility of giving people options if it came down to Earth having issues, and then a Neuralink, where he basically said, because of artificial intelligence becoming such a problem in the future, as far as it being smarter than and dominating humanity, it's important for us to be able to keep pace by plugging into the matrix, by basically being able to upload skills in 2 minutes. You can do stuff you couldn't do before by uploading it to your system. And so yeah, all that Hollywood movie stuff, it seems like they're working on it, if not already have it complete.
Yeah, was that song Space, maybe the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement, right?
Yeah.
It's like the Rolling Stones or somebody sang that song. But anyway, here's the point. But before we move on, because I want to hit on those topics, and one of the topics I want to hit on is tying it into all this, autonomous, driverless trucks and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But first, I also wanted to say before we move on, I talked about Friday, right? And we're going to have a really good understanding by Friday of what's going on. And well, why is that? Because on Friday, two things are going to be happening, right? Early in the morning, right before the opening bell of the markets, we're going to see the jobs report, right, where the government, the Bureau of Lies and Statistics, the Bureau of Labor Statistics informs us of how many jobs were created for the month of August.
Yeah.
So that's at 8:30 in the morning, and that's one of the two favorite times for the cartel to smash, right? The favorite times to smash are GDP reports, which is only once every 3 months, and then the jobs report, which is every single month, right? It's the first Friday of the month, covering the month before. And then, so that's at 8:30. And then at 12:30, Jerome Powell is going to be in Zurich, right? He's going to be giving a speech called like our economic outlook and monetary policy or something like, his outlook's, it's great economy. Everything's going great. That's his outlook, right? He's been saying that for years. But, they always prep these markets like 30 minutes before he goes on and starts speaking, right? So, gold and silver get hit, stock market gets ramped, volatility comes down. So my point with that is on Friday, if they can't hit off that jobs report and if they can't hit into that Jerome Powell speech, we're going to have another indication that they're really just maintaining the illusion that they're still in control of the price suppression. But I think that control is breaking. So I just wanted to hit on that. The jobs report is going to be interesting on Friday, just to touch on that one more time, because that is one of the official two mandates, right, of the Fed. The one mandate is maximum employment, and then the second mandate is price stability. I don't know if they call it maximum employment or full employment, but that's one of the mandates.
Yeah.
And President Trump, he tweets out that jobs, 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 right? All caps with an exclamation point. So we'll have to see, because if we get, a booming jobs number somewhere over 200,000 or over 150,000, then, how is the Fed justified in, making their moves to cut interest rates? They're not, right? Yeah. Even though the Treasury, that's another thing. There's just so many things going on. The yield on the 10-year note is still plunging, Mike. It got down to like 1.42% yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't know, let me see where it is right now real quick, though. But, so they're telling you that the Fed's going to keep cutting, right? That's telling you that the Fed's going to keep cutting. It's like 50 basis points below the Fed funds rate right now. Well, it's gone up a little bit today, but I think it was yesterday. It was like 1.42. I just went on a tangent there, Mike. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
No, that's perfect. That's perfectly fine. And so what I wanted to hint at, that as you're just explaining those things, is that the fact that I want to pull up the article if I can, but yet quantitative easing has already begun, and so this is the second week of, it looks like, the Federal Reserve purchasing government debt. And so it was a long, was a 2-3 year tightening phase of them liquidating. Now they become the purchaser again. And so the question is, when will it be announced, and what will it be called officially? Because right now the increments are small. I think it was 8 billion last week, and then it was 8 billion 2 weeks ago, 6 billion last week. So total of 14 billion Federal Reserve digits were probably brought into existence. It's been deposited on the government's ledger and then distributed out to pay for whatever. But the money supply just increased by 14 billion over the last 2 weeks, and most people don't know about it. So I think that's some interesting news that people should start caring about pretty soon.
Yeah, and just theoretically, right, putting that liquidity into the markets, but the stock market isn't going up. The stock market's basically just going in this sideways channel, right, with some choppy price action going on. And that's interesting. You brought that up a couple weeks ago, and sure enough, now the mainstream is starting to talk about that, right? So it's like, we're always ahead, like 1-2 steps ahead of this game. But yeah, and I don't think it's been years since they started the quantitative easing, because the tightening, because remember, they were talking about it for like 6 months, right?
Yeah.
When are you going to work on reducing your balance sheet? And they kept talking about it. And this is another thing we were talking about, right?
Paul, 1 second. So just so not to cut you off, but so I found an article, so I got it up. Let me make sure I got it up so everybody can see it. So yes, I got it up so everybody can see it. It's from economica.blogcast or whatever. And so I got the chart up here. So the tightening aspect, as you mentioned, years, I was wrong. Forgive me for that. So as of, according to this graph here, it was at the end of 2017. So I'm not sure, how, because I paid attention. But so since that time frame, as you guys can see on the graph here, there's been a steady selling off of bonds. And then just as of last 2 weeks, we got a little uptick here. So from the last time easing literally so-called stopped, or it doesn't show in this graph here, was in end of 2014, and then all the way until the midpoint of 2019. So that's about 5 years, give or take, of no clear as day purchases. This is what we've been showed, or what's been pulled out. But this is very alarming in itself. So I'm sorry, go ahead, continue with what you're saying.
No, those are all great points. Yeah. No, but my point was just that it's interesting because, whenever they were talking about tightening, which they never tightened, right? Getting up to 2.25 to 2.5 is not tight monetary policy, right? Reducing your balance sheet, right? Basically paying off your debt, right? But reducing your balance sheet by, not paying off the debt, but the excess that they purchased. Reducing your balance sheet by $50 billion a month is not like super tightening. So they never became super tight, right? Yeah. But either way, they kept, they call it like the forward guidance, and they're preparing the markets for it. But it was just like this slow dragging their feet, because I couldn't remember that it was at the end of 2017, but I do remember it was like 6 months they kept talking about, we're going to start reducing our balance sheet soon. We're going to start reducing our balance sheet soon. But, it's funny because when we talk about this, and we're seeing it now with these bond purchases, right? When they're talking about tightening, they're very slow to begin it, and then they take these super teeny tiny baby steps, right? But once it comes to easing, oh man, they're just like immediately ease every single opportunity you can. And now with these bond purchases, they're not even signaling that they're going to start it up again. They just started it up again, right? So it's like, obviously the economy and the markets are in terrible shape right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. And watch this. So to take this to elaborate on this and to explain why I believe this is so important, because it shows the true nature of the global economy. And so it shows how dependent the markets are, or have been, upon debt issuance. So I have right here graph up with the Wilshire 5000, which is basically the true measurement of global corporation activity. and equities wise, because it has about 5,000 or so companies in it. And so as you can see, all the yellow spikes up is all the quantitative easing. So we got 1, 2, and then we got 3, and then we got a drop off, and we see the market activity. So the more debt that's been created and turned into funny money, the higher the markets go, because the markets were juiced up. And so now it looks like, I wonder, is this an attempt to continue to keep this party going, because Wilshire is dropped off a little bit when they weren't purchasing. So now could this purchasing be becoming a part of their forward monetary guidance or policy to keep this thing going back up? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and not only that, but Jerome Powell has said it, right? He said we need to keep this expansion going, right? And that's not what we need to do. But yeah, I do think that that's what it is to keep it going. And, it's all at the expense of savers. It's all at the expense of, the guy on the street who has to use dollars, who's barely keeping up and is actually falling behind. So yeah, I do think you're right. And that's a good point there. And just a pet peeve of mine, whenever I see that Photoshop picture of Jerome Powell where he like a Superman, he's got that pose, you know what I'm talking about? That
Yeah.
I had to go on a rant yesterday because they should Photoshop him onto like some ISIS guy, right? Because that's what they're doing. They're killing savers, right? They're killing savers. They're killing the dollar, right? When they say they want to target a 2% inflation rate, what they're saying is they want to destroy the dollar at a rate of 2% per year. Right? That's what they're saying.
Yeah. They're a monetary terrorist.
Yes, they are. I do think that they are. It's interesting. Yesterday you were talking about with Harley, and he kind of led on to it. But I would just say flat out, the Fed needs to be abolished, right? He led on to it like after this happens, right? We could nationalize it or what? No, you just got to get rid of it altogether. And then I do think these things are coming, right? It's just slow in the making, right? But now who's taking over? As far as going to be the influencers in the world, it's going to be Generation X, right? And they're scared as heck of Generation X because, that's why we're the X, right? Because we're totally unpredictable in that way. Although we know what's coming, right? We know what's coming. What's coming is a return of the gold and silver standard.
Yeah.
I just got to say one more thing before I move on.
No problem. Go ahead.
And possibly get some into the chat. But here's about that, right? Like all of these smart people and all of these great people, right? Like Harley is a great person, right? He's a great fighter. He's saying all the right things. The only quip that I have is that he just completely neglects silver, right? It's like where's the love for silver? I don't just see the word gold in the Constitution. I see the word silver in the Constitution too. That's the only thing out of all this stuff. But it gives me hope because he's saying that there needs to be some sort of radical change, right? So the radical change comes from from the bottom up. That's the radical change, right? Something that's truly grassroots, right? Not something that's like funded by George Soros, but something that's truly grassroots and a radical change from the bottom up, and it has to include silver, right? So that's possibly why he can't make that leap to the radicalism just so much. Not to interpret what he's saying because I haven't asked him directly about that.
Right. And I wouldn't. I personally because a lot of people we interview, we start off and they primarily use the word gold, and I think now, it encompasses sound money, and so it just so happens that gold has been the bankers' money and all that stuff, and silver the people's money. But yet, I never look at it as like them. This, not including silver. It's just I know that they referring to precious metals in general, and so they probably leave out silver just because gold is just always black. You see gold on the mainstream news nowadays more than you see silver, and so we all know that's included. And what I would like to see to what you're mentioning is that silver being publicized as being one of the most undervalued assets in existence today. That could be a great hedge against all this stuff going on because of the distortions in the ratios, the contract, all that stuff that keeps it so suppressed in regards to its true nature ratio-wise. So I like how David Morgan, the last week or whatever, referenced, how he's disturbed by how analysts and commentators that are of the new school, they say the ratio is 16-1 because of it being positioned that way intentionally by who he said he threw out Sigmund Freud, somebody from old yesteryears. But same, but actually out of the earth, 1 to 9, 1 to 12 is what is always whatever, and so that's
It
what
was
it
like
should
Newton
be.
or somebody like that.
Yeah, Isaac Newton, yes. And so just think about it from that point, the Silver Guru himself, when it comes to just how things are being thrown around, I think people just discount it and just don't include it in there, but it's not intentional in a sense.
Yeah, yeah, good points, excellent points. Oh, and remember, and because we were talking, and you said this a few shows ago, but you said I think anything that's monetary in value is going to catch a bid. Have you seen what platinum's doing? Also, platinum is just going ballistic right now. I've been looking for an upside surprise in platinum, and that chart is shooting straight up in the air, Mike. And that is showing you proof right there. That is proof that the fear trade is on.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing: what do all these mainstream analysts say? Right? They say, well, since it's going to be a recession, nobody's going to be using platinum. Well, why is platinum surging to the moon right now? Because the fear trade is on, and platinum has all of the properties to be money, right?
Yeah.
Which we're talking about, this hedge against inflation, this hedge against uncertainty, all of this bad stuff that's coming down the pike.
Yeah. I'm looking at the graph now, and I see
it's shooting straight up in the air.
But watch that.
Like yearly or something.
And so I'm zooming out now, and so I have it from looks like beginning of 2018 to now, and it's slightly below that 1 year high because it looks like it got up to about 1,007, and then I zoomed out, from like 2010, and then I see that it's still it's half of the price it was at its all-time high back in 2011. So it's getting a great bid. It's exciting, but it still has a little ways to go as well. So what that tells me is that between now and the time it returns to its former high, any time between now and then it would be a great buy if that's something that you have interest in, because once again, it's not going to zero and it can only go up because of all the things that's happening. So it will be a win-win situation in my opinion.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, if the industrial demand for platinum is going down because of the global slowdown, then why is the price going up, and why is there a movement into platinum? Because there's fear. There's a lot of fear right now, and the mainstream, is not even that fearful yet. Yeah. I mean, it's barely just starting, which is why, I don't think, I've been looking for an upside surprise in crude oil. And so WTI, right, West Texas Intermediate, and silver and platinum. We've got it in platinum, haven't had it in crude oil, and I still don't think that we've seen my upside surprise in silver. Although yesterday we had a 90+ cent move, which was nice.
All right. So I typed it. Just on SDBullion.com. I hit crude oil as an additional feature in there. And you can, I'm not a chartist or a chart analyst, but just watching and just seeing it, you always like to see a trend. You can see that there's a correlation of price movement. Oil goes up, platinum goes up, oil goes down, platinum goes down, and just looks like as of August 27th, there was a complete divergence. Like one went down, the other one took off. So something. If you got any technical analysts out there, let us know in the chat what this looks like, because platinum's going up and oil is going down. So that's not been the trend for the last year.
Which is further proof that the fear trade is on. That's further proof of that, right? Because the commodity sector in general, right? Copper's been down too. Copper's been falling for most of the year. So I think that these moves are impressive, and they're going to get even more impressive. I really do think that this is just the start. And if you look at the gold to silver ratio, just to jump back on that one more time, since candidate Trump became President Trump, that ratio just started moving and moving and moving and moving. And it was in the low 60s, right? It was like a 64 or something like that right before President Trump was sworn in, was inaugurated. So just to get to where it was, right? Because we're talking, everybody's saying all that this stuff that's happened since Trump became president is reversing, right? The stock market's reversing, manufacturing is reversing. Harley said that yesterday, and that's what we've been saying all along, right? We are not having a boom in manufacturing. It's an outright lie. Yeah. And Harley is saying that. We've been saying that. So all of this stuff is reversing. So for the gold to silver ratio to reverse down to the 60s, right? If gold's at 1750, right, at the end of the year, and if the gold to silver ratio is at 60, well, that puts silver at $30, just right there, right? So all of this stuff is very bullish, and part of the reason why I guess I'm going off in such different directions is because these markets are so fast moving right now. It's so exciting to watch these charts, and just the geek in me likes to watch them. But if we want to slow down the pace a little bit, we'll say hi to the people in chat. I do like to thank them for supporting us every single week in, week out here. Let's see if there's any questions for us there, Mike.
Sounds good. Go ahead and do that. I'm actually, I want to go ahead and read through that. I'm trying to pull something up real quick. Let me see here. All right, let me open up the chat a little bit and find out what's going on. Anybody highlight anything that caught your attention?
Well, someone said can't load the video. What's going on? But so I was kind of looking at that. I'm going to refresh my page and see. But I mean, we're still live and everything.
Yeah, everything looks good on my end. And so let me see. It looks as if I'm not mistaken. I'm looking at the dashboard. It looks like there's about 260 or so people watching thus far. We appreciate you guys joining us. And as always, if you've enjoyed the back and forth and if you've got something of importance from this back and forth, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up beneath this video to show your support. And the phone lines, it hasn't rung, so either nobody wants to talk to us or the phone isn't working. So if anybody's out there want to give us a call, 567-336-0844, let's test these phone lines and make sure they're working. It's something I want to try to incorporate so it gives you guys a voice in this, so you just don't hear two guys ranting back and forth.
Yeah, we want somebody to call in and ask us hard questions. Definitely. All right, let me see. But I wanted to get back on that automated.
The AI?
Well,
automation or what?
If anybody has a question or a phone call first, I mean, we can certainly do that.
What was that?
Mm-hmm.
No, I see someone. It looks like some back and forth. It looks like even Steven says, does anyone have any opinions on 100-ounce bars versus 1-ounce coins? And so I'm assuming, I mean, that's one of the things where my little 2 cents is, 100-ounce bars, is something you're going to sit on for a long time. You probably won't be moving that, and that's can be considered a big savings deposit in a sense. 1-ounce coins, I'm assuming that you might want to dip into that one day, so you'll be able to move those things a lot faster than a 100-ounce bar. So just my thoughts there. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, certainly. That's part of having a diversified portfolio. You got to, the bulk of my stuff, which is very, very tiny. I mean, my stack, it is so small, Mike. I mean, I barely have anything. But, I am stacker. But here's the thing, right? 1-ounce coins are the basis, are the foundation of my stack. And then, I have some heavier ones, right? And then I have some fractional as well. So, yeah, that's just part of being well-rounded and being diversified because, and then there's following Gresham's law as well, right?
Yeah.
You keep the best stuff. And when you have to get rid of the less best stuff or whatever it is, because generally the premiums are cheaper on the 100-ounce bar, right? Yeah. So you can get a 100-ounce bar cheaper than you can get 100 1-ounce coins. But, when it comes time to sell, if you need a whole lot of money, then you can sell that 100-ounce bar easier because you don't have to deal with 100 different coins. Plus, like you said, what if you want to sell a little bit here, a little bit there? Yeah. Or even trade, right, or barter. So there's lots of reasons. Right now, SD Bullion has a heck of a sale going on. They have their end of the summer sale. And this is what I was talking about. I don't know if you can pull that up. Like They have a deals page, right?
Give me 1 second. Go ahead.
With these deals, this is exactly what I was talking about. Because premiums are super, super, super low right now. So they have these great deals. They got generic rounds on sale. They got American Silver Eagles on sale. I mean, you got to buy a tube of them, right? So they're like 20 in that tube. But it's nice because you get the tube too, which is nice. It's got the little Department of Treasury and the green lid.
Yeah.
But the point is, because remember a couple of weeks ago when we saw how premiums in 2015 shot up on 90% to $6.49?
Yeah. All right, Paul, I'm sorry to cut you off 1 second. We do have a call, so I apologize. Thanks. So, caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
My name's Dan. I'm calling from Titusville, Florida, just enjoying the lovely weather over here.
Dan from Florida. How you doing, my friend? What's on your mind tonight? You got or today? You got a question, or you want to add into the to back and forth a little bit?
Yeah, just kind of a question. I'm kind of I buy Eagles and then I buy generics whenever I can. I say I'm probably 60% generics and 40% Eagles. I'm a never say never kind of guy. So if the dollar goes to total crap and we end up like some kind of situation like Venezuela, I know highly unlikely, but over there they got, I've heard where you can get like 6 months of food for a family of 4 for 1 ounce of silver. What's the benefit to having an Eagle compared to a generic in a situation like that?
So what's the benefit of having an Eagle as opposed to a generic round in a situation like that? That's your question. Yeah. Okay, Paul, want to touch that?
Well, I think for barter purposes, I think that they would both I think that they would both be treated the same, right? So I don't think that in a situation like that there would be a difference, right? I think that either one would be equally as valuable because 1 ounce is 1 ounce, right? Remember, when the Coinage Act of 1792 came about, it literally said that the dollars or units of the same as is current, right? And what was current was the Spanish pieces of 8, right? So the Spanish dollar, in addition to the US dollar, was the same exact thing, and it was directly interchangeable. So I think that they're both the same. I think that where it comes in to an investor trying to decide, should I have generic, should I have Silver Eagles? I think you should have a combination of both. Because here's the reasoning, right? Like take, for example, Sunshine Mint, right? It's a great mint. They make planchets for the American Silver Eagles, right? They're one of the places that do that. But, they can mint as many of those generic rounds as they want, right? But 2017 Eagles, there's only a certain amount of them, and they're done making those 2017 Eagles, right? And people collect those, and they go collect those by the years. So, like, for example, 1996, that's the most valuable year for an American Silver Eagle. So, there are additional things on top of just the generic aspects that make an American Silver Eagle have more of a premium, have more of an ability to even have that premium appreciate based on mintage numbers and things like this. But when it comes down to a barter situation, I think that they would both be equally valuable. Thoughts on that, Mike?
I'd agree. And so I would go even a little further for me personally. And so if we got to a worst case scenario situation, such as we're seeing outside this country here, and it's one of the things that, as he mentioned, Venezuela is not likely. But when I believe that when we're transitioning to the new system, it's very likely because the world, is flooded with dollars. So at some point, those dollars won't have the same. People won't be interested in holding dollars as way that they do now. Therefore, that could be a hyperinflationary / crisis type of situation. So we can learn by Venezuela, Argentina, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Turkey, Egypt. So you can learn about all those places now. When the paper isn't worth much, then what? So silver is the people's money. Now, transition to a new system. I believe I'm very cautious on wanting to get back into the next currency or digital whatever they're going to try to sell us on. So I personally, silver rounds or government issued minted coins of 1 ounce, to me at this current moment is still too precious to probably part ways with no matter what, apart from dire situations or a great opportunity to be able to purchase something that will eventually cash flow. But my thought would be junk silver. And so from the person who did something in the chat earlier, the tiers of weight you might want to consider. This is just my opinion. If you're a person of high net worth, you might want to be sitting heavy in the 100 ounce or whatever you can afford up there. You ain't touching that. Hide it. You'll never need to touch that until. And then if you plan on having some transactions in between now and the time things shift into whatever it might be, then you got your 10 ounce bars or 5 ounces, then your 1 ounces. 1 ounces to me, U.S. Mint says $1 on it, so I would eventually treat it as if it's a dollar bill one day. But we know the dollar bill is not what we want to get back into. So I think beyond the 1 ounces, you need junk silver or subsidiary silver, which are things you probably would want to barter with. So I would rather part with a quarter or a dime or whatever. Or I like my 1 gram fractional silvers, me personally, because that 1 gram, it's so small now, it might cost maybe $1 now. But if we reach a worst case scenario, that 1 gram could probably be a $100 bill equivalent of purchasing power. So I look at these in tiers. And so from heavy all the way to the smallest microfracture of some weight would be something that I would move. So I would move those small things first before I get to the 1 ounces and definitely before I get to anything else, in my opinion. And until things stabilize and that next system is going to be rolled out, which is going to be a while. It won't be something they just say everyone will transact in this new thing. No, they're going to devalue that new thing. So whatever. That's just my little 2 cents with it. But we have another call. So let's,
excellent point. And stay safe down there in Florida. We don't know. I don't remember if he said exactly where he was, but hopefully he's dry and without any difficulties from Dorian there.
Definitely. All right, let's have another call. Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from?
My name's Roy. I'm calling from Montana.
1 second. Give me let me make sure I gotta put this on speaker. Speaker off. Hold on a second. Speaker on. Another issue with technical difficulties. All right, let me see if I can get this to work correctly. All right, here we go. So let's try this again. What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name is Roy. I'm calling from Montana.
Roy from Montana. What's on your mind, Roy? What question or thought do you have?
Well, I'm wondering with all this quantitative easing and different things, if you think we could see hyperinflation in the next year or two.
Whew, next year or two. Paul, want to touch that one?
Yeah, Harley yesterday was optimistic that everybody can sit down and come to an agreement, right? I don't think that agreement can be made until we get into a crisis, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that I would subscribe more to like the Paul Craig Roberts school of thought, which is where I think the United States will become Venezuela. Will it happen in the next year or two? I think that it very well could, because I think that the plan, the deep state globalist plan is to bring on maximum economic pain to the United States as a way to bring the United States back down. So I do think that that's coming, and I think that ultimately will come, especially with the quantitative easing, which is just a fancy way of saying the money print. It comes down to, when is that confidence lost? Because remember, last week we were talking about, I think someone called it the Great Print. And, we had mentioned that there was a 100-year print, right, and that steady decline of the dollar since 1913. Then, since 2009, there was that, $4 trillion print from the Fed. So the next one is going to be that crack up boom. So, yes, as soon as it starts again, it could be definitely a year. It could definitely be 2 years. I don't think it takes 5 years, right? I think that it's closer to 1 year than it's closer to 5 years. Because let's think about this too. We are in a global fiat currency crisis right now, right? Right now. Several things tell us that. Negative interest rates and $16 trillion in negative interest rates around the world tell us that, right? All of these countries that continuously blowing up are blowing up again, right? Look at Turkey, look at Argentina, look at the problems in the Eurozone where everybody's fighting everybody, and everybody's saying, Harley was saying that they think the Eurozone's just going to collapse altogether, and that's only been around since not even 20 years.
Right.
So the thing is, the dollar is going to be that last one to go, right? It's the core, right? And when you're freezing to death, your fingers go first, and then your forearms, and then your biceps, and then the last thing that goes is your core. People use the ugly or the dirty shirt in the laundry, the cleanest dirty shirt analogy. So I do think that hyperinflation is in fact coming, and that pretty much always happens, right? Because that's how fiat currencies go. Because you can do just a few things to get rid of your debt, right? You can default on it, and then your currency's toast, or you can tax and cut spending, but you can only squeeze so much blood from a stone, or you can hyperinflate it away, right? And it always starts out as inflation, but it always ends up as hyperinflation.
All right.
Sorry on that, Mike?
Yeah, no. So you did a great job of summarizing that. We have another question. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from? Hello.
Hello.
Hi there. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, this is Bill. I'm calling from the west coast of Florida, where it's just a typical summer day.
All right, Bill from the west coast of Florida. What's on your mind, Bill?
Well, Mike, I read your website several times a day. I check it for updates, and I remember reading a story about a month ago that there were hundreds of thousands of ounces, maybe tons, moved into the COMEX warehouse, but this time it wasn't J.P. Morgan. This silver was moved in. It was at least reported a month ago on your site, I think, and a couple of others, that this silver was moved into New York, physical, to back some approaching silver ETF moves that were coming. And I'm wondering if the silver march that we're seeing in the last 2 weeks is a result of that, or did somebody on Wall Street or in the central bank see something coming, and why that silver was just parked there for these ETFs? Do we know anything?
Paul, half dollar.
Yes, and James did a great interview with Ted Butler about some of this very specific things as well. So I would recommend going back and listening to that Ted Butler interview on metals and markets. But yes, because technically what's supposed to happen, right? When people are buying into the SLV, right? Now, how much of it is believable and how much is not? If you talk to Harvey Organ, he would say that, do they have it or what is it used for? But yes, if people are moving into SLV, then the SLV has to go out and actually buy that, right? And then have that physical silver stored. And yes, I mean, we're talking about lots and lots of silver here. And then the flip side of that is, someone like Harvey would say that it's going to be used to short it so that they can, use it to cap the paper price. As far as who exactly owns it and who is it for, remember a couple weeks ago, there was also that thing, well, maybe it's owned by China. Well, maybe it's owned by JP Morgan. Maybe it's just the ETFs buying it all together. But the bottom line is, yes, when people are buying into these ETFs, they have to go out there and actually purchase that physical silver, bring it in, and then store it, right? So that does affect the price because, the price is a paper price, but physical silver is actually real, and they have to go out and get that. And the only way that you can get it is to, entice somebody to sell it. And the only way that somebody can sell it is if they're going to think that it's in their best interest because they're getting what they think it's worth at that time. In addition to the movements into the ETFs, there's massive silver demand going on in places like India right now. So that's another reason why we're seeing prices going up. Because we're seeing, remember, it's the Western and especially the American retail investor is not there on the physical side yet. And we see that with the premiums still low. They got half dollars on sale for under $1, right? Premium over spot on the SD Bullion deals page. But once that happens, that's going to be just a third massive fundamental factor that's going to be boosting price. So yes, when people are buying into the SLV, they have to buy that physical silver to back it because that's technically what it is, and then that's going to move the price even higher. In addition to the Eastern buying, and I keep hogging these questions, and I'm sorry about that, Mike.
No, that's fine. Because I personally I don't focus on the manipulation madness, how they go about doing things. I focus on just the physical. So I don't care. I've enjoyed the manipulation for me because it's allowed me to acquire it cheaper. So I'm okay. I don't pay attention to it. I'm more so long-term game. I know where the Federal Reserve note is going, so that's why I don't pay attention to it much. So I'll let you cover that. But we got another caller. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, this is Eric from Illinois.
Eric from Illinois. How you doing, my friend? What's on your mind today?
Hey, man, I saw a show that you guys did yesterday. I think you had a guest on that said $20 silver would blow up the banks. And then I know Max Kaiser tried this and got it up to $50. The banks didn't blow up. What's you guys' personal opinion on what dollar amount's going to blow up the banks for silver?
What dollar amount? Now, so just hearing that question there, I don't necessarily think it's going to be a dollar amount that will blow up the banks in regards to the whole silver industry. And I personally think it's just going to be just the debt contagion period and the lack of liquidity that the banks might suffer in the next coming year or two as the markets and all the negative interest rate policies begin to hurt them. And so to add to that, and I'll let you share your thoughts on it. There's an article that came out today. I haven't dived into it further, but it's very telling as to what will happen. And as Alan Greenspan says, it's only a matter of time before negative rates spread to the U.S. Now, these negative rates that he's referring to is simply what's happening all around us. Now, I believe that monetary policy, even though it's been designed to prop up and to give life to the too big to fail banks, they might be the ones that end up ushering in the issues with the banking system. So that's just my thoughts. I don't think silver gold, that's going to be a ripple effect of the consequences that's already in play, in my opinion. Paul, you any thoughts on that?
Great thoughts. As far as dollar amount, I don't have a specific dollar amount one way or another. And then I guess the other question is, are we talking about the bullion bank specifically? Or are we talking about the banking system in general?
All right, good point.
Because here's the other thing, right? we know the banking holidays are coming, and these happen, right? And it's going to be on a weekend, and they're going to announce it, and we're not going to know ahead of time. But the Federal Reserve, they know how much liquidity these banks have. They know if people are pulling money out of these banks. There could be bank runs going on right now that we don't know about that could be blowing up these banks as we speak, right? Mm-hmm. And they have the unlimited printing press, and they have the data, and they don't share it with us. So I think that the bank holidays are coming, because when we're talking about getting to the next system, we know that it's not going to happen just people getting down and agreeing on what we can do, mm-hmm. right? Because, as Harley was saying yesterday, they have their power and they want their power and they're going to hold on to their power. Right. So it's going to be a systemic crisis, and it's going to be a banking crisis. And then, we're going to see the banking holidays, and we're going to see some sort of emergency legislation again. We're going to see some emergency action again. And who knows what it's going to look like coming out of there, right? Now, when we're talking about blowing up banks, right, I think that, I truly hope that ultimately this next crisis around, people are going to question the actual existence of the Fed, right? The bank, right? Well, maybe not the bank if you count like the BIZ or the IMF or something. But, these are the conversations that we have to have, right? In 2008, the mainstream was in control, and it was, what is the Fed going to do to help this out? And this time around, the mainstream is going to try and be in control, but this time, hopefully, the mainstream, there's enough people that are going to say, wait a second, the Fed is the problem. What are we going to do about them, right? And there, like I said, there's no reform to it, right? You have to get rid of it. You have to put the power back to Congress, right, into the Treasury. That's where it has to go. I think Harvey Organ talks about $20 silver blows up the bank. I did an interview with him, and he talked about that. Because the other thing is, you got a couple of things going on with COMEX too, right? So you got people actually do buy some physical, right? So when part of the reason why they're talking about it blowing up the banks is because, well, if you got $20 silver, or if you got $30 silver, if you got $40 silver, and if people are demanding delivery, right, the banks have to actually go out and spend that money to get that physical to supply it to the market. And so then you come into liquidity issues as well. Yeah. But then it comes back to, are they just printing it up and just feeding it into the system anyway? I don't know. We don't know what's going on, right? Because, QE started, and they haven't even officially started that. So there's just these little snippets that we get here and there that are bringing us one way or another. Right. But, either way, I do not trust the bank. I have not trusted the bank in many, many, many years. The only amount of money that I keep in the bank is enough to, take care of my daily needs and my monthly needs. Other than that, it's all coming out and it's going in the metal. Because on top of that, right, like with the FDIC, so if we're talking about a banking crisis and the FDIC, how long is that going to take to sort all that stuff out? That stuff's going to take, a long time, especially if it's a systemic crisis with too big to fails. And we know that, it's not just going to be the U.S. banks and the Feds, but we know the IMF's going to get involved, BIZ is going to get involved, all these banks are going to get involved, and, how is that going to look like? I'm not sure.
All right. Sounds good. Now, we have another caller, so thank you for sharing that, Paul. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Iowa.
From Iowa. What's your name, if you don't mind sharing?
Jim.
Jim from Iowa. What's on your mind this afternoon?
I've been listening to you folks, and I want to put some rationale into your charts. I'm looking at your silver chart for the last 15 years or so, and gold and platinum, and I'm into electronic materials of all kinds. So I'm a technical specialist in the use of electronic materials. And is silver an electronic material? Absolutely. Is gold? No. Is platinum? No. Is palladium? No. Silver, among the 130 odd atomic numbers or atoms on the periodic table, over 100 are almost all man-made. Everything below 100 is sort of natural, but out of 130 nucleons or atoms, silver alone is the most important element in the periodic table because it strategically has the lowest resistivity and the highest conductivity of any any element, any metal, more than gold, more than platinum, more than palladium, and we don't, as scientists, we don't even know why. But it's so cheap. It's so cheap compared to gold, platinum, palladium that are artificially inflated. I mean, platinum is sold for $1,800 an ounce back 10, 15 years ago. Silver's topped $50. The truth is that silver, because it is the most strategically important element on the periodic table, there almost is no upper bound for its value.
Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate you sharing that. And from a scientific standpoint, you laid out some things that adds on to the importance of the reason why people should have silver. And it goes well beyond the money aspects, because you mentioned from a technological standpoint, it's vitally important. So I appreciate you calling and sharing that, my friend.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, man, that was
Yeah,
great. Go ahead.
Those are good points. I mean, gold is used in electronics, right? CPUs, processors, use gold, electronic circuitry, as well as palladium in there as well, too. So, it is minimal, right? And also there is so much silver because silver is relatively cheaper, but I also wouldn't agree totally with the artificially inflated in the gold, because gold is money, right?
Yeah.
So gold is not inflated in that sense. It's other things are devaluing against it because gold is your measure. But yes, as far as a strategic asset, silver is where it's at, and it has been artificially suppressed for all these decades. And that's all we're doing right now with this price, is catching up. And this is another reason. He just made a great point, because you remember how I talk about, people think I'm crazy for saying I think the ratio is going to 1. Right? But this is one of those reasons why I think it's going to 1.
Yeah.
And, it could go, to 5 to 1, but guess what? It would be silver that's 5 times more valuable than gold at that point, right? So I agree totally with that. I would say that I would agree like 98% with everything that he said, and about 2% I would be in disagreement with, but I think that those were all excellent points that he made there.
All right.
And I'm liking this calling feature, Mike. That's
got
nice.
another call. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from? Hello? Oh, my bad. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from?
I'll be from Dallas, Mike.
From Dallas?
Yes, sir. Mike, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
So, is there a possibility for spot price to go away? And if so, what would happen to the metals?
Is there a possibility for spot price to go away? And if so, what would happen to the metals? Spot price. I think the spot price, of course, as we can tell, has been heavily manipulated due to all the paper activity, the digital activity. And so I don't think it's going to go away. I think eventually there's going to be some competition in setting the price, and it's going to come from our Eastern allies, enemies, whatever you might want to call them. And so a part of the next monetary system, I think that there'll be a new method to discovering price in relation to the digits and paper that's been put into circulation. So I think there's going to be some competition sooner or later when China gets tired of this whole back and forth of being taxed up the wazoo. They may say, the hell with the dollar, let's come out with our own pricing mechanism, because you got the Shanghai Gold Exchange futures and all stuff like that as well. So what's keeping them from setting their own price, which would then give the COMEX and the bullion breaks in London some competition. So I think we're going to have some competition soon with China and the East and West setting the prices. And at that point, then we're going to have all hell break loose, because who can you trust, and where will you run to try to sell or buy more from? So that's just my 2 cents there. What do you think, Paul?
Excellent points, Mike. And, I would look at it like, I think the spot price will be going away because it'll be more of a market price, right? And let me use this example that's like right now. RAM, right? I don't know how much people know this, but like I'm I like to pretend that I can build computers,
Yeah.
right? And for my son and my daughter and for myself and all this. So I know that like RAM, computer desktop RAM, like DDR3 or DDR4, that's like a commodity right now, right? And there's a market price, and I follow these prices because I buy this stuff, right? When I'm making my computer, so I know that I can get 2 8-gig sticks, right? 16 gigs of RAM, and I know that if I'm on the low end, if I'm lucky, I can get it for under $50, and that's a market price. But then things happen that bring the market price up a little bit. Things happen that bring the market price down a little bit. So I think that what we'll see with the spot price is a little bit more daily fluctuations, but it's going to be more of like an ebb and a flow as opposed to just it's going ballistic one way and it's going ballistic the other way because they're smashing it right back down.
Yeah.
So I think that, and that's a good thing, right? Having a market price is actually a good thing because then you're talking about what is supposed to happen, which is ultimately at the very core, a buyer and a seller getting together and making an agreement on what the price is going to be for that thing that they're buying and selling.
Yeah, basically getting back to typical supply and demand factors. So, but hello, caller. What's your name? Where you calling from? Hello?
Hello?
Hi there. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Oh, hi. This is Carlos from San Francisco.
Carlos from San Francisco. How you doing this afternoon? What's on your mind, Carlos?
Well, I'm doing great. And I'm also a huge fan of the show.
Thank you, sir.
My question is, do you guys have a strategy in terms of, averting capital gains in your silver gains? I know that I did a rough search, and I know that the Silver Eagles at least are capital gains exempt. Can you guys speak a bit on that?
Great question. Paul Halfdollar, what are your thoughts on that?
They're changing so many things right now that it's hard to keep track of it all. I've been stacking for several years now, but my dollar cost average is, I want to say it's under $18. So I haven't sold any, so I haven't had to deal with that personally myself other than selling at a loss. But, we're talking about sales tax coming in. Trump just tweeting out, talking about he wants to change the way the capital gains taxes are. I'm not exactly sure what he was talking about, how to change that. But, that's something that's way above my pay grade, other than the fact that I do know that it is, in fact, fluid and changing. And, it's going to depend on what country you're in. It's going to depend on what state you're in. Then it's going to depend on current legislation. Is that legislation going to sunset? Is it not going to sunset? And then, because people talk about, what can you put in an IRA? You can put Silver Eagles in an IRA. You can put certain products in an IRA. But I'm just not an expert on that, so I would have to yield to, excuse me, to, give the guys at SD Boyne a call, and they can point you in the right direction on where you can go for all the tax stuff.
Yeah, I would agree.
Thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, I would agree also. And depending on, I'm not sure who I interviewed, but the gist of everything was that whatever the taxes are now, in whatever form you're referring to, they're set at prior conditions. And so guarantee in the future, when things probably get a little worse, those taxes will change significantly, whether they will be even a lot higher or a lot less to accommodate the people's pain, or if I can say that in a different way. But whatever taxes are now, believe me, it's going to be different 10, 15 years from now as this monetary system changes. So, and me personally, I don't pay attention to the capital gains aspect because I don't sell anything. So I save. So if I'm not looking to get rid of it, then I'm not worried about being taxed. I'll get to that down the line, but I know it's going to change. So just my 2 cents there. Go ahead.
And then additionally, right, because I think that it's ultimately going back to a gold and silver standard, right? It always does. And that's the next system we're coming on, because for the last 47 years or 6 years or since 1971, we've been on a pure fiat system. So here's the thing about the capital gains and that. Well, if gold and silver are money again, then you're not selling it per se. You're just using it.
Using it,
right?
yeah.
So, and then the other thing is, they're starting to charge, like people was talking about a VAT tax, or they're starting to charge other taxes on it in some areas, So it's like, you're paying taxes on these things so many different times. I'm not going to tell a person to pay or not pay the taxes. And I don't even know how that works in and of itself specifically. But, it's just something to think about too, right? When we go back to gold and silver, we're not selling it, you're just using it at that point.
Right.
So holding on until that new system is my point there.
Yeah. And I would, and knowing that we desire to go back to some type of, we desire to go back to some type of system where there is a standard in regards to our money, and we want to refer it to gold and silver. But yet my only issue is that the powers that be don't want that. And as Harley mentioned, as long as they're in control, they're going to get what they want because they set the terms of the agreements. And if they end up owning the government, then I don't think there'll be a standard set on money because we're going to be ushered into some type of digital backing or some kind to get people excited. And then they're going to take the backing off like they did before. So where we're heading, they're trying to force us digital, but yet we have the power and control to have our own personal lives somewhat physical as best we can in the meantime. So that's what it is. But Paul, we're on an hour and 6 minutes, Paul. That's how much fun and how time flies when you're having fun. So it's time to dial back. Go ahead.
I want to say one thing real quick.
Go ahead.
Okay. Because we've been talking about Venezuela, and I think that's where we're going. Have you seen those videos, right, where hungry people, and these were like a couple years ago, right? Hungry people go out to a field and they'll just like stone a cow and then they'll cut it up.
Or go to a zoo.
Or they'll attack the trucks, right? That you see like a whole gang of people on a motorcycle going behind the truck and forcing it to stop, pulling the driver out, and then just ransacking the truck. Yeah. Or they'll just block it and start pulling the stuff off the truck. All this stuff about autonomous trucks coming. Think about what's coming to the global economy, right? We're going to enter into a nasty financial crisis. We're not going to have all these autonomous trucks driving around on the road, because people are just going to wreck them and pull all that stuff off of those trucks. I mean, people aren't thinking this stuff through. That's what's coming to the United States dollar. Venezuela is coming to the United States, right? And part of what that is, if you see something of value going down the road, it's going to get stopped and it's going to get taken. When you deliver cigarettes in Mexico to the convenience store, they got armed guards delivering those cigarettes, Mike. They come out with a bulletproof vest and they got a shotgun and they're bringing in, 3 cartons of cigarettes to the little store and they're protecting it with their life. You see what I'm saying? So we're not going to have all of this crazy technology, sure, there's stuff going on right now in experimental phases, but, why aren't trains autonomous like that right now? Why still have people in those? These things are going to get ransacked Venezuelan style. It's not going to happen. I just wanted to go off on that because you started off the conversation with Elon Musk and technology and all this and all that. And I just don't see it happening because I see human nature coming in there and preventing it from happening.
Yeah.
Based on what we see in Venezuela with actually people driving these trucks.
Right. And I agree that, within that transition period of of transition out of this old paradigm and going through discomfort and all the pain during that time frame there, what you're saying is 100%. And the goal would be then to, as we usher out of that into whatever the next system and the next sense of normalcy might be, then at that point the autonomous stuff might be rolled out because there'll be order. But during times of chaos, no, anything. And so I'm going to sign off with this one. In Johannesburg, South Africa right now, as we mentioned before we went live, we're witnessing social unrest in ways that you only see in nations that are up against the odds, where the people are tired, unemployment's high, they can't buy food, cost of goods. I mean, they have all the conditions to be pissed. And right now they got people just burning, looting, killing each other. And that's what's happening there. And I'm of the mindset that it's no way possible that all that can be happening around us and it not somehow, some way work itself into this country one day. God forbid it does. But yet when people get fed up, circumstances are completely against them, social unrest and chaos is inevitable. And I wouldn't wish this upon this country, but the powers that be did this intentionally to transition us into something that they're wanting to be in control of. And I just hope that the people can rise up and realize what's going on. So that's why, like, this type of show, having a chance to go back and forth, hoping that, you guys that are watching can share this information with family and friends to bring them into the fold so they can wake up and begin taking action. Because as you mentioned earlier, retail silver is not really being shown in regards to the premium aspects because people aren't really buying. So we have a lot of people that know that's watching the show, buying. The rest of the world, millions of them stuck in paper and digits, they're not. And they're going to be on the other side of that equation, having lost all their capital and and future prosperity. So yeah, that's my little last thought there.
Yeah, and there's nothing scarier than somebody who has nothing to lose, right? And that's what's people are at the point where they have nothing to lose. And a person that has nothing to lose, it's like a rat in a corner, and that's not a pretty picture because it's going to try and strike back.
Right.
So
yeah, buddy. Okay, so it's been great hanging out this afternoon. Let's dial back. So as always, I'm looking at the chat, and we didn't get a chance to get to much of it, but once again, the phone lines were picked up. They picked up today, Paul. I must admit, I appreciate you guys calling in and sharing your thoughts. And the goal is get as many calls as we can. So I apologize for hanging up on you, but yeah, I'm a one man. We're a 2-man show. We run into everything, so we iron out the kinks. But it's been great hanging out as always. Don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up to the channel right beneath here. Share this information. And then me and Paul, we're working on trying to upgrade a little bit to give you guys more of an opportunity throughout the week to connect with us. So we'll keep you posted on that. Other than that, Paul, anything else?
That's it. It keeps getting exciting and exciting and exciting. This Friday, we're going to see whether the cartel is losing control or not. Big movement's probably going to happen on Friday. So we'll have to see. It's going to be a fun time to watch the chart, and I don't think it's going to get dull from here on. I think it's just starting.
All right, I do agree. So other than that, people, it's been great hanging out. Be blessed, be safe, and we'll see you on the next episode. Stay tuned. Peace.